we are individualized energy, but we are part of a universal consciousness that is infinite, and
Ever knowing, just, yeah.
and that the idea of God truly isn't separate from us. It really is a part of us, and in essence, it is us. And that's a difficult
Message, yeah.
view or way of looking at things, because we have been taught for so long that there's no possible way that we can be God.
Welcome to a Broaderlands podcast. The opinions expressed on Broaderlands podcast are those of the guest speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of the host or Broaderlands podcast. Renee, Anthony, welcome to Broaderlands podcast. What an honor to have you guys on.
Oh, what an honor to be here. It's so exciting to finally make this work out because we met you at Conscious Life Expo a couple of months ago. And so I'm glad that it led to this conversation today.
Yeah, you
Thank
guys are, yeah, thank you. And you guys had a beautiful booth. I appreciated you guys talking to me and, yeah, making me feel welcome and inviting to your booth. So thank you. Before we get started, maybe you could share a little bit about yourselves and the work that you guys do, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Sure. So we're founders of Blue Soul Earth and Blue Soul Media. Blue Soul everything, pretty much. I know we have like Blue Soul, you name it. Blue Soul Summit, Blue Soul Circles, Blue Soul Retreats. It's kind of silly at this point. But I know the idea is, through most of our work anyway, is that we do workshops, we do retreats. Everything is really based on unity consciousness, bringing forth the masculine and feminine together to balance as one, as a way to reach enlightenment, if you want to call it that, but really just inner peace and serenity and connection to that cosmic force of all that is, whatever you call it. We do teachings. We talked a little bit about that before we started this interview, that a lot of the teachings are a combination of the Gnostics, right? The traditional Gnostics, post-Christianity that kind of emerged, and also a little bit from Hinduism, a little bit from Judaism. It's a mishmash. It's become more of the snake and the kundalini of all the blending together is really what it's become. But our lineage, we were taught from those disciplines. Maybe that's a better way of putting it.
Yeah, I think so. We're a little bit of everything, and then some.
And then do you want to talk a little bit about the channeling?
Oh, the channeling aspect. Oh, yeah, that. Well, I am a channeler, and a full embodied channel where energy will come into me and start speaking through me. And I've been channeling for about 10 years now. And the majority are just the main beings that come and connect with me is Yeshua of Nazareth, also known as Jesus, Miriam of Magdala, or Miriam, the Magdalene, and then another group of beings that have been with us for over 10 years now. And
we refer to these as the Ascended
Masters.
So a little bit like the Jerry and Esther Hicks scenario of the collective Abraham. These are a collective group that come through and speak as one. Although, and I know that's really, as Anthony said, that's been our focus, over the last few years. And, as we talked about earlier, and you mentioned a book came out of, the Yeshua and Magdalene stuff. But before that, our journey was kind of long. You could say channeled everything in the universe and beyond. So Melchizedek energy, Metatron, which is collectively known as the Seraphim, right? That those energies and frequencies, if you like, came through in the angelic realm, and
galactic energies,
gods and goddesses. So it was a wild journey before we kind of distilled things down and got really focused on, you could say, the Shekinah and masculine energy of the Abrahamic line of religion.
Those are really the beings that come through
Yeah.
for us. That's what we've narrowed it down to right now. And I
Are
believe
there
that's
any?
where we'll stay.
Hmm. Are there any ascended masters that we don't know of on this earth plane that has you guys channeled?
Tons.
Really? Let's see.
Well, the thing is, when you say that, it's
Ascended Masters.
yeah, that's a tricky question. So when I say tons, we don't focus so much on names. Has energies like Saint Germain come through? Yes. Melchizedek, Metatron, some of the other masters.
Saint Jerome.
Saint Jerome. But these are more known. So the
Yeah.
reason I say yes, tons, but maybe without the names, is that our guides often will say, there's literally thousands of frequencies coming together and working as one collective speaking through you right now. And they did even say in the book also some of whom you've never heard of. So that's why I answered the question that way.
Yes, I guess so. We just don't know exactly who they are.
Yeah.
If I were to say I know exactly who these beings are, I'd be lying to you because I don't.
We can't prove it.
I can't prove any of it. But I do know the subtleties and the changes that take place between Yeshua and Miriam and then our particular guides. I can feel those subtleties.
Yeah, and other energies.
But I don't know 100% with accuracy that they are who they say they are. The first message that came to us many years ago is that we are not who you think we are.
We are you.
We are you, they'll say.
And you are us. So, and I think to come full circle, and that's a long answer to your question, so we'll cut after this, but it could lead into an interesting segue. To come full circle that, 10 to 11 years later now, the message hasn't changed in the sense that there's no separation between you and source.
Right.
And so you could look at it as a more evolved teaching of this could be, we're all channelers of our higher selves. And in that, we're energy beings radiating and emanating and connecting with the all that is. So think of it that way, as connecting to frequencies that you align with. And that's what comes through. That's probably a more accurate way of describing the process.
Yes, in a manner.
Miser Eckhart, and I always share this quote, how he says, and I'm paraphrasing him, theologians may argue, but the mystics will understand. But I think when we really tap into that mystic within ourselves or to our heart, we could connect the dots to universal truth versus being caught up in a box, in the us against them. And I hear that in you guys, in your work, in your book. You guys really connect the dots and really look at it from a unity consciousness. And I really appreciate that about you guys. Why is that? It seems like when you really tap into your heart, you're more unified and you could see the truths as universal truths versus being caught up in the dogma of a particular religion, in the us and against them mentality.
I think that all good spiritual teachers, sages and mages, whomever they are, it's all going to come back to one particular thing. And that is that we are a part of everything. We are a part of nothing, depending on how you want to look at it. We are the drop of water in an ocean, a grain of sand in a vast desert, or as I like to say, because we're originally from upstate New York, a snowflake, a giant mountain of snow. We are individualized energy, but we are part of a universal consciousness that is infinite and
ever knowing.
And that the idea of God truly isn't separate from us. It really is a part of us, and in essence, it is us. And that's a difficult view or way of looking at things, because we have been taught for so long that there's no possible way that we can be God. But yet the same message keeps coming through us again and again and again and again. And
I don't know how far you got the book, Boo Boo, but there's a part, where they're constantly saying, Yeshua and Magdalene are saying, I know we've said this before. Do not edit it out, because it bears mentioning again until you get it. We're going to say it 6,000 ways and variations over and over again until you truly not just understand it intellectually, but feel it.
Mm.
We can't do the spiritual bypass of just saying, okay, I'm going to heal my trauma because intellectually I understand that I can do that now. I'm going to, think with my heart and not with my head because, gee, that makes more sense. But when we don't feel it and have that experience in our bodies, we can't fully live
Yeah,
it.
you really have to feel it in your heart and in your body in order to truly connect with your higher self, which is connected to everything.
Yeah, it's a surrendering.
It's a lot of surrendering. Yes.
Did you guys both have your own individual awakening, some process? Some people come in this world like that, pretty much awakened. For me, I had to go through a lot of trauma and a lot of pain to wake up. What was your guys' experience with an awakening?
A lot of trauma for me. Mine was a difficult awakening in New York, in the
Wow.
Bronx. It's a difficult place to wake up.
Yeah, that's why we really resonate with Stick from the Hood.
That's right. I woke up in the boogie down Bronx, and it's a difficult place to have a Kundalini awakening.
Wow.
It wasn't until I really came where I met Renee, who was far more awake than I was, in the sense that she had done a lot of spiritual work, where I've done spiritual work, but not at the level that she had.
Mm.
I've done a lot of kung fu and a lot of yoga, a lot of meditation, a lot of breath work,
Martial arts, you
a
did
lot of martial arts, a lot of meditation. But once I opened up, I was in enormous physical pain, neurological pain throughout my mouth, and my body was shaking. So it took over a year to get that nice and calm, but it happened again. And that's when I knew I had to move and leave New York to go to California. Um,
It's interesting though,
and that's when it really happened.
those early days with Anthony shaking, that Kundalini awakening shaking, because that happened a lot.
All the time.
Oddly enough, I knew nothing about that. I mean, as Anthony said, I explored many different paths and studied with all the greats and followed Wayne Dyer and Deepak around, that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
you did a lot.
I did a lot in those days, really kind of seeking Ken Wilber and all of those teachings, Cynthia Bourgeot, love her. A lot of these people that were in my 20s and 30s. So when I met Anthony and hadn't really experienced the Kundalini, I hadn't done an ayahuasca journey, I hadn't done, drugs, hadn't done frog medicine, anything. He used to shake and his hand used to shake. And what's weird, and I think about it to this day, it never seemed abnormal. Now that's strange, right? It's like it should seem abnormal. It should seem strange, but it really never did. It was almost like there was an inner knowing or understanding that he was awakening in some way, and I was there to support, in whatever way. I wasn't afraid. I didn't think he was crazy. I didn't think he had any physical stuff going on that needed to be worried about. So I think at some level, our soul kind of knows the path when we're brought together to do work. And I think that's kind of what happened with us, because my path was less experiential than Anthony's, but more studying with all the masters. And I did have, several, how do you put it? Out of body experiences that I couldn't explain in this earth realm, where I was in a different dimensional shift. And then I knew, okay, I have to take a look at this. This is bigger than me. Yeah. I think that was the case for both of us.
Most definitely it was, yes.
Yeah.
How did you start channeling Mary Magdalene and Yeshua?
Yeah. Well,
I know we laugh at it now, but
one of the first beings that were coming through was Yeshua,
yeah.
the Jesus. He was coming through a lot. And it wasn't until a few years later that Miriam
Showed
just
up
popped through in our living room, and
over dinner.
we're like, "Who are you?" And we had no idea. I mean, I knew her just a little bit from my
Catholic
Catholic
upbringing.
upbringing, but I wasn't quite sure who she was. And then she started coming through more and more and more and telling us more about ourselves also, and who she was and how she's connected to us. And that's how
Mm,
it happened. And
Yeah,
it never
she
stopped,
literally just showed up in our living room.
literally, and never left.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
That's awesome. Who was the real Mary Magdalene beyond the traditional narrative? I know in the Gnostic text they talk about, she's Yeshua's companion, but also an apostle, but with deep esoteric wisdom not known about in the mainstream narrative.
You want to
I
start?
think Miriam
Yeah.
was a modern day woman, far advanced than most women of her time. And that's how she led her life.
Mm,
She was a no nonsense woman that didn't take anything from anybody. And she'd let you know that. Very sensitive, loving being, loving
But
woman,
strong.
but very strong and courageous. And she'll let you know that as well. Um, she is how do we compare it? The Martin Luther King of our
Yeah,
modern
I
times,
would
if you will.
say a female Martin Luther King in this regard, that she didn't hold back. If she needed to speak her truth wherever it was, I mean, of course, women had no rights back then, so they truly couldn't step into onto a stage or a platform as Martin Luther King had.
mm,
But imagine maybe more Joan of Arc, living life with conviction, saying what needed to be said, but doing so, I think, in a very smart and strategic way. Because when Yeshua was crucified, she didn't stick around and say, I'm going to go on stage and, speak his words. She wasn't stupid, right? She said, if I stay here, my daughter and I are in danger. So
mm.
Yeshua kind of led her to safer waters to live amongst the Druids. And so it wasn't stupid, blind words of wisdom and conviction. It was strategic navigating the waters of what I need to do to create community and continue to spread his words, right? Which she couldn't do in Judea.
No, not at that time.
Yeah.
Did she ask you guys to write a book with channeling her?
The interesting thing is a lot of the book is our life.
Mm,
It's a parallel to our life. I mean, obviously it's historical fiction for myriad reasons. Um,
Did she ask us though? I can't remember. She did, didn't she? She said, "You're going to write my words."
actually, she didn't ask.
She told us.
She doesn't ask anything.
She kind of tells you what you're going to do, and then she'll ask later.
Yeah, that's more accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely more accurate. But the reason for historical fiction, I mean, we're doing kind of a giveaway thing on Goodreads this week, which, most authors out there who are listening, you've probably done that yourself. It's a popular thing to do, right? To reach more people. And when you're reaching more people at a $2 download or whatever, just to get the word out there, you're going to get a lot of people who see this and say, "Oh, untold story and teachings," and they'll take it literally. They'll take it literally in the same way that many people have taken the Bible literally for so long. And the danger with that is that and we even say in the preface, we are not suggesting that this replace any story or belief system that you hold dear. But our hope is to open your heart and hear it differently, hear that there may have been a potential different landscape and lens of which to view this woman that has been incorrectly portrayed for millennia. And it's really an invitation to hear with your heart, read with your heart, and imagine, imagine something that was more likely from
Mm.
that time.
I would
Well,
love for you guys.
I want to mention one thing about the book I always find it unique because the book itself is channeled, but it's also lots of research
Yes,
that
it
has
is.
gone into the book itself. And Renee has been able to create an incredible novel about these two individuals having this incredible experience. And so there aren't any, I've never seen any other books out there, and I've read lots of literature where it's channeled, researched, and made into a fictional novel, which I find fascinating. And
Yeah, it's a
it's a
combination.
combination of
But
all
but it's
three.
really an invitation to say, what do you feel in your hearts? Because we've
Right.
had some comments. Well, this is not the Jesus and Mary Magdalene I grew up with, or this isn't what I learned in Catholics,
Certainly isn't
school,
ours
or
either.
all of these things. Or we had one-star review, which is always disheartening for an author, but that
Yeah.
said this was not the Mary Magdalene I knew, and I don't like the fact that you had her married to Jesus. 1 star, I deleted the book. And it's like, okay, that kind of hurt, it kind of hurt a little bit. But, at the same time, it's like if you don't probe deeper and go deeper, she kind of even says it in the book, those who don't hear my words will never know me.
Mm.
Yeah.
Love that. I noticed you guys use Yeshua versus Jesus. I personally feel that Jesus has become like a constructed figure, but I feel like Yeshua is more closer to the divine truth of the Master Yeshua.
Yeah. So the reason
Absolutely.
why I have a stress on his word because when he comes through on his name, he won't say Yeshua. He'll say Yeshua. And he'll
Mm.
stress the ooh part, which I find fascinating. But in English, it's Yeshua. His name really wasn't Jesus.
Yeah.
It was Yeshua, but it was translated as Jesus in Latin. And then we took the I in English and made it into a J. And of course, in Spanish, it's Jesus. In Italian, it's Gesù. And in French, it's Jésus. So, but his real name was Yeshua.
And Aramaic was the predominant language
Yeah.
at the time, which is his name. And
Hebrew was not his
yeah.
his native language. It was Aramaic, which is a it's like a brother or sister to Hebrew. It's kind of like English and German or Dutch. They're related. Same family of language, Semitic
Yeah.
languages. But you are right. His name was Yeshua.
Mm.
It feels more authentic to us.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does. And it's more mysterious because we're so conditioned, at least for me, or just being in the West, we're so conditioned with the church narrative.
Yeah.
But who is Yeshua? You know?
Who really was Yeshua exactly? Who
Yeah.
was they don't refer to him like that in the church
Yeah.
because his name was Jesus in Latin. And they continue to say that, but just anglicize it to Jesus.
But I
Mm.
think that's another hope for the book is that, and there have been many books who have attempted to try and uncover Yeshua's true teachings, right? And going through the parables and kind of, there's been many spiritual teachers who have also drawn parallels to different traditions as well of his teachings. But I love the fundamental one that he comes back to again and again, which is the kingdom lies within. That the real beauty, the real magic, the real juice, right? It's us. It's our souls coming alive again and realizing our own divinity in physical form. That's what we're here for, is to realize our true divinity and in that physical form. And I think sometimes we make it too complicated, right?
Mm.
People will ask, well, what's my soul's path or my soul's journey? And Yeshua will say, it's to love, of course.
Or what is it that you love to do?
Yeah, what are you most passionate about? Because then that gift will flow through you.
Yeah.
And then it's never work, it's never anything, right? It's your purpose, it's your raison d'etre, It's really who you are at a soul level. And I think, you know, I think that's sometimes why our message isn't always that sexy, right? Because it goes back to the simple, simple, simple
Boy, that's true.
love.
Yeah.
Love yourself, love your neighbor, be kind, you know.
It's still the same message he and she gave literally 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
It's all within you. Love your neighbor, love yourself. Know thyself, know thy God. When you know yourself, you're going to know who you are, the divinity of who you are in this lifetime.
Yeah. And it's, you know, it's not sexy today
it's not.
when, you know, we go to conferences where, you know, there's a lot of conspiracy theories and there's, you know, there's evil forces out there trying to separate us and, you know, and sometimes people will ask us this and yes,
The galactic is coming to save us.
yeah, or whatever, you know, whatever the message is, it's just another replacement for the answers out there. The answer is not out there, you know.
It's really within.
It's really within. And
Inside.
so, you know, Yeshua will
find
always
that.
say you can focus on those dark forces if you want and the divisiveness if you want. But, you know, or you can focus on unity, love, and connection and have that be the trickle effect, right? The snowball effect that just showers everyone in your wake with love, right? I mean, if we focus on conspiracy theories, guess what? We're going to get more of them. If we focus, you know, on divisiveness and angry, evil forces, guess what? We're bringing that more into our field. We're giving it oxygen. If you give it oxygen, it grows. If you take away the oxygen, what's left? I am who I am, the present moment and love. That's it. You know, I mean, I don't mean to be trite, you know, saying this, but I just think because it's not easy for us either. So I'm not trying to make light of it in any way, shape, or form. It's more that I think Yeshua does get frustrated sometimes, even with us, to say, why is humanity make it so complicated? You are here to love each other, accept each other, embrace each other, help
Easier
each
said
other.
than done.
It is easier said than done. We're challenged every day with that too. Things come
It's
up.
really a practice.
It's a practice.
It's a daily practice.
Yeah, it's a practice.
No, I agree. I was talking to Eben Alexander, who was at the expo as well, and we were talking about, like, I think we get too focused with the galactic this or the Palladians or whatever. But what about just learning how to love each other again? The only way to make America more healthier is to get everyone to love each other, respect each other, understand each other, and watch the way we speak to each other and treat each other. And everything else will follow, but it goes back to love. And I think we do need to be reminded over and over the same basic message because we're not getting it as a collective.
No, we're not. Not at all.
At the moment, we're not.
At the moment. Well,
Yeah, the moment we're not. But that doesn't mean we can't have conversations, circles, healings, things just like this.
Mm.
You know, there's 3 of us, but then, you know, we can do the same thing we're doing here with 6 of us, with 10 of us, with 12 of us. And that intention grows. I mean, we feel it in our membership community groups when we get together. You know, Lynn McTaggart, the power of 8, right? You know, the field when we're amplifying energy and healing in a collective group with that intention, it grows. And you feel the resonance, you feel the love, I think.
yeah.
I don't know. It's my church. You know, it's our community is my church. I would say our community in nature. That's my church, right? That really kind of reminds me of that oneness, interconnectedness.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You guys have a beautiful chapter. The whole book's beautiful, but chapter 11, I love becoming our belief systems. And you said something that like hit me in the chest. And it said, people are more glued to our set of belief systems than they are being free. And I always say the biggest minority in today's world has nothing to do with skin color. It's authenticity. And I would love for you guys to touch on the butterfly effect, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's getting into science now, but I mean, the basic idea of the butterfly effect is when we do something somewhere, it affects something somewhere else, right? So the original idea behind it was that a butterfly flapping its wings can affect or put forth a tornado in South America or something like that, right? And there's various different examples kind of exemplifying the same thing. And so the idea is that really that cause and effect. So that what we do has a ripple effect somewhere else. And so, there's also a chapter on, well, I don't think a chapter specifically called timelines, but talks about timelines. So when you think about timelines as different experiences that were all happening simultaneously, that's the quantum aspect of who we are.
Mm.
A lot of times people get so focused on what's happening somewhere else, or my trauma might be directly connected to something I did in my past life. When you're not in the present moment, I'm going to come full circle with this, but when you're not in the present moment, you can't focus on love because you're constantly in fear or what if or anxiety or whatever. So when you're coming back to the present moment, and our guides will say this all the time, what you do here affects all the other yous elsewhere, right? The butterfly effect, look at it that way. The other aspects of us, the other frequencies, right? Frequencies meaning like these are all different frequencies. Think of it as, individual threads on your hair. These are all frequencies, all experiences that we've had in past lives, right? And so the soul is all of it. It's all of these frequencies. And so when we're scattered and we're everywhere and we're not in the present moment, then we're constantly focusing on something else. I'm not sure if that's sort of making sense. We want to be in the present moment. We want to focus on love, and that has the ripple effect that we're talking about in the butterfly effect. That was probably a complicated way of saying it. You want to add anything? That was probably a little over complex, everyone.
They do get into things like quantum theory and particles and things that we knew nothing about when they started talking about stuff of that nature. So we had to study about quantum physics and particle physics and things like that. But in the end, I think what they're saying that everything that we are energy itself, and all the energy is connected to all energy. And what you do here, you connect to the entire consciousness of energy. As above, so below, as within, so without. That's in the physical sense, but in essence, we are energy, affecting energy everywhere, simply by our speech, even just thoughts themselves, intentions.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Brian Swim earlier, who we're huge fans of, and interviewed him too. We love him. From the cosmology perspective, a parallel to what Anthony's talking about, and Brian writes about this in his books, is that the universe is constantly creating itself again and again and again. And so are we. We're constantly evolving and creating ourselves again. And it's all connected. And so I think that's, the piece about cause and effect, and also the participatory universe. The cosmologists will also say that we live in a participatory universe because what we do creates an impact somewhere else, right? The double slit experiment is a great example. If we observe it,
It changes.
It changes.
Right.
Not to get too quantum on you all.
No, please, because we're quantum theorists by
Yeah.
any means.
Yeah, I seen Ahmed Goswami write something. Yeah, that was pretty awesome to see him in there. You guys had a lot of people give good reviews on your book.
Yeah, well, I think it was really important, especially both of us come out of science. And so, I thought I want to know that people with it, it wasn't about the PhD factor initially. It just so happens that a lot of the books that we read and were inspired by, and were also on our podcast too, some of them, I just really resonated with the parallel examples that they gave in cosmology, physics, modern science. Eben Alexander, another great example, love his work and really respect his work. It was all coming through here in the book, but in different ways. And so I wanted to blend that in there. I wanted to blend in the philosophy and the cosmology, and just to show that really science and spirituality is not that different after all.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Anthony, did you lose a lot of friends after your awakening, your old friends, or did you manage to keep them because they think you're weird?
My father used to say that. Weird. I'm like, Dad, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, my friend. Did I lose a lot of friends? I never had like lots of friends. I always had really just very good single individual friends. Um, but you will, anytime you go on a spiritual journey and you start opening up to different energies of who you are in this lifetime, you may lose friends and you may lose family members as well. And it's not uncommon to lose these people. But as a result, on going on this incredible journey, you're going to gain other individuals in your community that are going to understand what you're going through because they're going through the same thing as
And
well.
they become, I won't lie to you. I mean, our community feels like family to us. That's why I say it's like church for us because, we're committed to each other. I feel like it's this growth process, practice. I mean, community, they say that's, important in every single tradition. That's one of the pillars. And I really believe that because, when one door closes, another opens is kind of what you were saying.
Yeah.
And all of these other people start flooding into your lives who wouldn't be there otherwise.
And you know who you can, or I should say, with whom you can speak about your spirituality. With members of my personal family, I don't go there because it's not needed. And for them, they don't understand it too much. So I'll speak about other things that we had a lot in common with, like football and basketball, and March Madness is over with now, and things like that. I can talk about
The thing is,
that I grew up
to
with.
his point though, because some people ask, well, shouldn't I be sharing my spiritual knowledge? And I would say if they're not able to handle it, through the language or whatever, and you tend to alienate them because of it, show up in a different way through your
Yeah.
actions,
Yeah,
because that's rather than alienate them, just show up with your vibration of love and let, whatever trickle in and don't worry about the rest,
yeah.
which is harder said than done. But that's really Yeshua's teachings.
Those who have ears will hear.
Yeah.
Those that have eyes will see. And those that don't worry about it because it's not worth it.
Yeah, I love that. I asked that question because I had to learn how to navigate through all that after my awakening. I remember when first time I jumped on Facebook, I no longer have that account, but when I jumped back on, everyone was saying, "Stop playing around. What are you doing tonight?" I'm posting something of maybe Gospel of Thomas or Yogananda or something. Stop playing around.
Yeah, I mean,
But
some people think we're religious, which is kind of hilarious for me, because of some of the work that we do. And it's like, well, no, it's not about religion. It's about love and it's about serenity and it's about peace.
You often mention religious. I don't consider myself a religious man, although I do practice Judaism. Through all of my channeling, I did find all of my Jewish roots, my Italian Jewish roots. And so it led me into the practice of Judaism. I don't practice Catholicism anymore, but Jesus or Yeshua is a huge part of my life and will always be.
He even looks like him, which is kind of funny. I mean, people send us pictures all the time with different images of Yeshua, and then they'll have Anthony side by side, and it's like, oh my God, this is like kind of
Jesus as an older man.
I know, it's really funny to see some of the pictures that people send us.
But yeah, practicing your religion, I want to say this to everybody, you can still be religious and still have spirituality, still have faith, still have science. You can combine all of these things together.
As long as the dogma doesn't get in the way of you practicing and contributing to society in a bigger way beyond yourself.
Each aspect of life should be additive and contribute to the whole of who you are as an individual and then you share those gifts with others.
Yeah. And there's a lot of excitement in there, and certainly the research, not just for this book, but for the courses that we've taught over the years and so on. And so much of the research, there's overlap, like again and again and again, between Sufism and Gnosticism, right? And the Kabbalah, and a lot of the stuff that Buddhism, Shintoism, even, we spent some time in Japan. And you really see these, like the fundamental universal truth just scream out, right? There's a trinity in nearly every single
I mean,
tradition.
each path ultimately leads to the same thing, this universal consciousness of oneness with the all. It's just they're just different paths to get there. That's all.
Yeah, I love that. You guys talk about the soul being multidimensional. I'd love for you guys to expand on that, because that takes knowing thyself to a whole different, broader meaning.
Oh yeah, okay.
It's a favorite. We love teaching about this. This is our favorite thing.
Multidimensional.
Of course, it usually takes us, like if we have a day workshop, we wish we had 3 days.
So
much to talk about it.
what does it mean to be a multidimensional being, living in a multidimensional universe, having multidimensional experiences simultaneously? That's really the quantum aspect of who we are.
Don't drink too much caffeine after that one.
When we speak of the soul itself, even the idea of a soul is starting to slowly dissipate, because it is more of a religious idea that we are individual souls.
Although Aristotle and Plato
Yes.
also had something to say about it.
We are more, I don't know how to describe it. We are individualized
Energy.
streams of energy,
Yeah.
having these incredible experiences in this
As energy.
as energy.
Forms. As energy forms.
So is the soul multidimensional? It is, in a sense, because it's connected to everything. And when you realize that, you realize your multidimensionality connected to this idea of universal consciousness, then it really becomes multidimensional. You're not just one, you are all. But you're having an individualized experience here in the earth realm.
Called Boo Boo Garcia.
Boo Boo Garcia.
That's your individual soul stream experience in this lifetime.
And that's what it is to be a multidimensional soul.
In this dimensional reality that we call Earth.
At least one of them, anyway.
That's what I said. Don't drink too much caffeine before this conversation.
So the beings will often tell us you are nothing more than perceptions of your own reality.
Yeah.
You create your perception of reality, so make it the best you can possibly have.
Right, because we're creating and recreating our realities in each and every moment.
And it doesn't go too far from what quantum
Yeah.
particle theorists say, that this itself isn't necessarily real. They'll say that.
Right. So, parallel that to spiritual tradition
Right.
of Maya or the illusion, right? That this is just a perception. We talk about that in the Lazarus
Yeah.
chapter, right? Where Lazarus is coming through to the couple, and Rochelle, the main character, is like, okay, dude, did that really happen? Were you really raised from the dead? And if so, how is that scientifically possible? And so there's a lot of parallels between,
Right.
and so he even brings it up in a scientific way that there were probabilities. There's never absolutes, but there's probabilities, which is a quantum.
Yeah,
way of
everything
looking
is
at
a
it.
probability of, whatever the present moment is, the probabilities are constantly changing and shifting.
So at this time, because the 3 of us are together, you think we'll see each other again physically. At this time, given that we're having this connection, the probability is going to be much higher, right?
Yeah.
At this time. 2-3 years go by, maybe we don't see each other. then the probability goes down. And so I know that's kind of a simplified version of way of looking at it, but a lot of times, because we'll do expos sometimes where there's a lot more psychics there rather than channelers. And so some people want that predictable reading on their future, and a lot of times we don't really do that. But if pushed and pressed, the guides will say the biggest probability at this time, is that you will stay in your relationship, or, that. So, people are looking for those absolutes. What they really should be looking for, and our guides push this again and again, is go internal, go in within, tap into the multidimensional soul of who you are, because the answers are already there.
Yes. Amen.
Aho, and so it is.
And in your book, you guys talk about miracles, and you said something about Yeshua enjoyed when people remembered their authentic self. I don't know if I'm getting it word for word, but how do you define a miracle?
A miracle.
You can start with that.
Miraculo.
But actually, what he was referring to, and I think it was Magdalene who had actually was communicating it, is that Yeshua, and it's not going to be in the exact words either, but then you can elaborate and jump in on it, that Yeshua saw the true miracle is not so much healing somebody from cancer, but them awakening to the reality of who they were as spirit.
Yeah.
That for him was the true miracle. Even though he performed all these physical miracles, for him the true essence was that. So
the miracle is that I'm sitting here right now with you, Boo Boo Garcia, speaking about spirituality, whereas 15 years ago, this would have never happened. The miracles are things that sometimes we take for granted in our lives, the little things that we don't seem to notice anymore, but they're still there.
Beautiful. That's a good, yeah.
Just the tiny things in life that are miracles that we shouldn't take for granted. Now, things that we can't explain scientifically, they appear to be miracles. Yeshua would say really wasn't a miracle. This is exactly what I was doing.
Matching the person's frequency.
Matching person's frequencies to create healing and things of that nature. And I think our science now is starting to...
with biofield healing.
Starting to see that these things that we once called miracles can start to be explained scientifically. So a miracle can be seen in so many different ways. It depends on how you want to view what a miracle is. I've seen things happen through both Renee and myself when we're working together that I can't explain.
People's bodies moving, something's getting activated when, Anthony's in trance and he's running his hands over people. We were in a hospital room when a friend of ours was dying, and, Anthony was doing this and his heart was like... It's like, are we actually seeing this? Is this really happening?
You can see his heart be increased, and you see it on being measured as well. And as a result, he woke up. And he was able to talk with his family members for the last time. And they moved him into another room. And that is miraculous.
That was miraculous for us because we could all feel it. And, the doctor said, no, that's not going to happen. He's gone.
Right.
And, I'm like a little kid sometimes, with this stuff, because even though I know we have to just surrender and not be glued to the outcome, he was my friend. I was like, Yeshua, come through and heal him. Like a little 10-year-old, right? I was just like, now I'm going to forget all the spiritual training that I've ever learned. I'm a Reiki master. Forget all of that, which says don't be glued to the outcome, right? You're just there as the vehicle or the vessel. But in that moment of pain and angst, seeing my friend withering away on the table, the hospital table there, I was just kind of wanting Yeshua to perform a miracle as we've been conditioned and wired to believe them.
I think now Yeshua, when he comes through, wants all of us to heal ourselves,
Yeah.
to know that we have the ability to heal ourselves through our communities if we choose. But I'd say those are some of the miracles that I've seen as a channeler and working with Renee, seeing people heal themselves
Yeah.
in so many different ways that I never thought was possible, that I thought I would never see before. And it's happening physically and mentally, psychologically, emotionally, just by being in this community.
Yeah, it is amazing, actually. I mean, it's kind of what gets us up every day. It's, because this path isn't easy, and I know you've had many people on your podcast who walk the path, right? And we all believe in it, or we wouldn't be here, and yourself included,
Yes.
for allowing the platform to get all of the light worker voices out. But it's not an easy path, right? Like, it's not. I made a lot of money in my former career, and I don't anymore. And so we've been conditioned and wired to think about things from Western thinking about what's valuable and important, and it does make it more challenging when you're walking the path full time.
I come from the 12-step community, and I'll see someone walk into the 12-step rooms suffering from alcoholism or addiction, and they're the walking dead. And then they start learning how to live on a spiritual basis, starting to question their perception and their beliefs, and applying these spiritual principles, and stop complaining so much and learning how to be more in gratitude and more learning how to live one day at a time. And you see a shift in them. You see a miracle happening.
Yes.
And I like to think, in the old stories of Yeshua, healing the, from the dead to being fully alive, healing the sick. I'm seeing the Walking Dead come into the 12-step community, learning how to live on a spiritual basis, and they become fully alive if they actually stay and do the work, their inner work. And I love that Gospel of Thomas, that saying, "What you find, what is within you, what you find will save you. What you do not find, what is within you, what you do not find will destroy you." And it leads back to what you guys were saying earlier. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's a great one. Of all the parables, that's a really great one. Kingdom lies within.
Yeah.
It keeps going back to that in just different words.
I think one of the greatest miracles for Yeshua was changing the perception of what we are as human beings. That was his trying to give that message that we really are of love, and we don't need to be violent towards other human beings, because during that time it was you think things are violent now. Things were extremely off the chart violent and cruel, what people used to do to each other.
Right, Napoleon, we were just watching this last night. He was going to have his daughter murdered, and
what the Romans
Herod the
did,
Great had his sons murdered. It just
not Napoleon was king, the British king,
yeah,
Henry VIII, I think.
that's right.
What they used to do to each other. And a lot of times, again, the guides come through and say, you have no idea how much loving you are as a species.
More so
than you were 2,000 years ago. Well, they'll say even 100 years ago. And I think that's one thing that we don't see ourselves as being more connected, more caring, more loving as a species than ever before. We tend to look at the negative aspects.
Or plug into the media too much, right?
So that is a miracle in and of itself, too, that I think Yeshua was able to change people's perspective of who they are in this lifetime back then.
And you think about all the greats said the same thing, right? I mean, Helen Keller's famous quote, right? Death is nothing more than walking from one room into another. And that's how Yeshua says all the time, when Anthony's channeling, instead of leaving, they used to say in the early days of our channeling, okay, we're leaving now. And now it's more like they're stepping back just slightly. They're just stepping back, but they're still in the auric field. They're just making Anthony's light brighter. And so, Yeshua will sometimes say, I'm just moving over into the next room.
I'm going to dim my light a little bit so Anthony's can shine a little bit more.
Yeah, but they're always They're all
Again, I
scared.
think that Yeshua wanted to say there was something beyond this
Yeah.
that you can hope for, that you don't need to be afraid of. There is something beyond this physical being or death itself. Although he
Mhm.
couldn't put it that in quantum aspects 2,000
2,000
years
years ago, because they wouldn't have understood it. I mean,
ago.
what they understood was language like the Father.
In heaven, that's
Yeah.
what they understood. Angels, things of that nature. That was their vocabulary.
Just like the vocabulary for the father, he used the term father. Was that, you think he would use the term source nowadays?
Well, in our channeling, he uses God and Source
God, source,
and
universal.
universal consciousness.
He'll say, I had to use the idea of father because that's all people understood. They
Yeah.
couldn't understand, we're returning to source or consciousness.
Well, it was also language they didn't have at the time.
You can
Yeah.
only get to the father unless you can't get to the father unless you come through me. And he would say, what I wanted to say is that be me, be like me, and you will understand the father.
You'll understand that you are one
With the father,
God.
you are one with God.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's as far as they could take it. I think that's why he spoke in so many riddles and parables, because most people couldn't understand what he was going to say. So he would lead them into parables where they would have to think about it, contemplate it, try to understand it in their own unique way.
And it's a little bit in the book too, where there's, he'll use parables, but mostly he's drawing parallel teachings from the past and brought anew. Mostly, at least in this book where he pops through. By the way, funny story. So I wanted the book to be 22 chapters, and it was 20, and it seemed like it was finished. And I'm like, no, that's not the right number. But it's like, I don't want it to be anymore because, it's 378 pages. So anyway, my editor said to me one day, she said, as we're kind of wrapping up the book, she said, Miriam doesn't mention anything about her label of the prostitution or anything about kind of how she and Yeshua met. And I remember we had a session with Magdalene after that, and she said, I'm done with I don't want to focus on that. Everyone else wants to focus on that across millennia, but I don't. And I said, well, we at least have to address it. So she's like, fine then. I mean, I'm not kidding you. It was literally like, fine then. It's going to be short. And so we made that chapter 1, and it's super short. It's just a complete monologue with her, and it's super short, right? It's just kind of a way to say, okay, you asked me for this, I'll give it to you. And then we were up to 21 chapters, and then so that 21st chapter ended with Yeshua. And I was like, we can't have a man and a book on the rise of the divine feminine and the overlooked apostle of apostles who was a woman and, by his side and wife and lover and teacher and healer and everything else. We can't have the book end with Yeshua. So I said, okay, we have to, and that's how we got the 22nd chapter. It was kind of by accident. We didn't even ask,
Wow.
but we were literally like the last chapter. I think we were lying under a tree or something, and late at night, and bang, Elohim comes through. It's
Elohim.
like, oh, here we go, the male figure again. It was just a really funny part about, the book's creation and how it came to be, and how now God has to come through to finish up the story.
Well, it's funny. It's before you jumped on, me and Anthony were talking, and we said women are not worthy. I'm joking, joking. No, but in the Gospel of Thomas, the disciples are saying women are not worthy, right?
I
But then
know.
Yeah.
Yeshua basically says, he says, I'm going to make her male. And is that a symbolic meaning for equality, spiritual equal?
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no difference under the eyes of God, he would say.
So
Yeah.
when we balance out the male and female energy within ourselves, would you call that enlightenment?
Absolutely. That's, as Yeshua would say and our guides would say, and all the teachings that have come through us, is that only through, I think it even says so in the book, only through the balance of masculine and feminine can you find God, whatever that is for you.
Yeah.
Because remember the G word, and I don't know enough about your audience. So those of you who have a trigger with the G word out there, don't worry. You're
Or
not,
the D word, which is Dios.
the
Right?
Italian next
You
to
might
me.
have a problem with the D.
Yeah. I mean, either way, if you have that trigger, that's okay because whatever it is for you, breathe that in. Is it the goddess? Hallelujah. Right? Is it Godde? That's great. Is it God? Is it Elohim? Is it Allah? It doesn't really matter. What matters is the frequency of what you're connecting to and the intention that you have behind it.
The idea that when masculine and feminine come together, they'll say like this, Om. That when it comes together, you start to realize that there really is no masculine and feminine. There only is, and you are the is of all.
The
And
I
when,
am who I am consciousness.
and when you can realize that, that's when you know thyself, thy God, and that it's all together as one. It's unity. Masculine, feminine, masculine together. And like, now I understand.
And it's the same with looking into the face of another, right? And so if we can just be brethren and sisterdom, is there a word for that?
Brethren.
Brethren is whatever,
Hermanos y hermanas.
the combination there, right? When we can see that, suddenly we won't have this discrimination against body size or color or sexual orientation because we're just energy beings all here to love each other. None of these other things matter.
No.
We shouldn't be, bringing up bridges against the very thing. I mean, oh my gosh, we have color in our humanity. This should be celebrated. I mean, how do you, Magdalene will say, how does humanity screw up something so beautiful, right? That we have colors of a rainbow, colors of the spectrum of the chakras. We should be celebrating all the various color shades that we are and body sizes and sexual orientation. So, you're getting me on my high hot water here. But I
I
just,
love that.
that's what I just don't understand this. Like here we are in 2025, see each other as love. Stop putting up all these borders and differences because we have so much more in common than we don't have in common.
We're getting there.
We do. And we all
Jesus
sit
got
around
deported.
hands.
So
What'd you say?
Jesus got deported. I was messing around.
It's just recorded.
Oh, oh no. Oh no. Oh no.
No, it's sad, all this division and chaos. And that's what I love about the Gnostic Gospels. It always talks about our forgetfulness. Like we got to blessed are the pure in heart, meaning like you're not looking at the spaces, you're looking at the consciousness within all of us, the shared consciousness, the same shared spirit, the oneness, our shared humanity, beyond the labels. And we forget that we're so caught up in the lens of the ego versus the lens of the heart, and that's why I love that saying, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God in all things, and about loving this God in each other. And we get so caught up with this us against them mentality. It's sad and sickening sometimes. I feel like throwing up at times seeing it. I can't watch it anymore. The news or what's going on.
It's so divisive, and I think too, even before the spiritual path, I also run an online travel magazine, We Blog the World, and so I've been around a lot, and so has Anthony. I've been to 95 countries and lived in
Wow.
11. He hasn't been to that many,
Nowhere near.
but you still speak. He still speaks 5 languages, maybe 6. I forget. And so we both have this international, global perspective on things, and living around the world. And I think about my time living in villages in Africa and how happy people were. Of course, when I say happy, I mean, if there wasn't good water, they're not happy, right? They're not happy if their basic needs aren't met. But my point is when we're, even in the Solomon Islands, right? They're out in the canoe and the simplicity of nature, going home at night, sharing food with their family. Fundamentally at the end of the day, this is what matters to most human beings is that connection with family at the end of the day and the simplicity of that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to ask you a couple more quick questions. Reincarnation. Do you guys believe in reincarnation? If so, what's the whole purpose?
Reincarnation. I think we used to. I don't now, after channeling for so many years and learning so much, I don't believe in the idea of beings being reincarnated because this carne, meat, right? That's to be reincarnate, to be made into carne again. Because this carne aspect of us doesn't really exist. It's not real. It's a perception of our own reality. But I do believe that we are able to manifest ourselves again into different realities, which appear to be carne, whole material beings. So yes and no. That's the only way I can explain it.
You're starting to sound like Yeshua.
I don't really believe in reincarnation
In the traditional
sense.
In the traditional sense. But in the concept and the idea, yes.
I don't really believe any longer in karma. I don't believe in sin. I don't believe that. And I got to say this to everybody. I don't believe in evil. Everything literally is of light and love.
Just various shades.
Shades of how we decide to manifest ourselves.
And the guides will say, rather than see it as evil, see it as further away from the light.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say there are things that don't get me mad and upset, just like with you as well, that you don't want to see happening in this world. But when you're on this journey and you start to see that everything is of source, of universal consciousness, which is Christ consciousness, which is love, then you start asking a lot of questions about reincarnation and sin. And
it's kind of like Azim Kamisa, who's in our podcast, the man who's known and traveled around the world, speaking about forgiveness. He forgave. I mean, it's the famous TED Talk, right? He forgave his son, or forgave the murderer of his son.
Yeah.
And today, that guy who's now out of prison is working in his foundation, and so that's really the true healing and the witnessing of, can you imagine the pain of, having your son murdered and then to come out through the other side and not only forgive. I think he went to bat and got this guy out of prison earlier than he normally should have. That's true witnessing and surrendering and living the spirit.
I just wanted to mention that, that reincarnation may not necessarily work for me or Renee, but it does work for other people. And if it does take you where you need to go, then definitely hold on to that belief system.
If I take you where you need to go, can I explain what that means?
Wherever it takes you.
Well, by
that, lead you further
on a spiritual path,
then
right?
definitely, because that's what happened to me also.
Yeah, so I think there's how do I put this?
Because it's a very Buddhic tradition as well, which we both went through
and still resonate with. Many of the Buddhist teachings we still resonate with deeply. So I would say, if you think about it as us coming back into energy form once again to have another experience, then I would
look at it that way.
You could look at it that way. Because that, I think we both believe in from the teachings, is that we do come back.
You may do it all over again.
Do it all over again.
To
have another experience building upon
just
the last.
A little bit different.
Yeah, so we do believe in that.
In a manner, yes.
Yeah. It's just slightly different semantics.
Yeah, I think so.
So God experiencing God for expansion?
Yeah. God is always experiencing God, and we are God in that sense. We are experiencing ourselves again and again and again
as different aspects of God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many traditions
You
that
can
talk
go
about it in a
so
different
deep, it
way.
will make your head spin.
Yeah, but
It really does.
the Kabbalah, or actually, I think this was way even before the Kabbalah, the ancient chariot texts of Ein Sof, the Ein Sof, where all the fragments of us, shatter to the earth, and then we're trying to pick up all these fragments of ourselves and to make it back into that wholeness of divinity
There are
again.
so many different theories and hypotheses because we don't really know. That's why. That's why there's so many.
But the universal truth of all these teachings of that fragments coming back together as
Yes.
one.
It all comes back together as one.
It all comes back together as one. And I think that's universal through all these, and that's what I really love about the book in a way. Because at first I was like, wait a minute. We've done so much teachings from so many places. Why are we choosing biblical characters where people are going to dump us into the religious category? And now I get it. Now I know why we're doing it. It's really to heal on some level the dogma that has separated us. The three Abrahamic religions are so close, right? Palestine, Israel, close. I mean, this is our brothers and sisters. And so I think it's really, when I say we, I don't mean Anthony and I think we as a collective need to heal on so many different levels, but certainly the Abrahamic religion, that's what we resonate most with just because we grew up under that umbrella. But I think that healing needs to take place across the board. And I think that this book is an attempt to do that. Yeah.
And that's what I love about your book. You have a section where you talk about quantum realities, and there's no singular truth. And I really appreciate that in that section. So yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming on. If I one more last thing, if I can put you guys on a big screen with all the chaos going on and the hate and division, what would you guys share with the world? Everyone had to tune in.
Should bring through Yeshua and have him leave the message.
That would
What
be
I
awesome.
want to share with the world.
Do you want to have Yeshua come through?
Oh, I don't know if Yeshua is going to come through.
Well, I'm asking if he wants him to come through.
I would say this. Wait a
That'd be
second.
awesome.
If you ask, he will, by the way.
Yeah, if you would love to have Yeshua to come through
Or
and give a
Magdalene.
message to the world.
Mm.
I would vote for Magdalene personally.
I will have just the guides come through.
Not to say that I don't love the J Man, but Magdalene is just, a
Do we
fire.
have time for this?
5 minutes.
5 minutos. No es mucho tiempo. Yo hablo español también.
Yeah.
Okay, I can go into channel.
Do we have time, Boo Boo?
Yeah, we have time. That's
Couple
fine.
minutes.
All right. All right. 1 second. I'm sure he will. All right. Let me close my eyes and just
Bring through Yeshua, sweetheart.
I'll see whose light's gonna come through. 1 second.
Just because the resonance field, when the Yeshua energy comes through, it's like.
Okay. Just gonna ask that Yeshua come to fill our hearts, our auric fields, our bodies with love again. To remind us who we are in this lifetime. Our divinity with source, with God, with universe consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Now, this process used to take a long time, so it's very quick now compared to the early days. He couldn't be in daylight or couldn't stand. It's been a very long journey to get to the point of where it's just seamless in and out like this. We are with a new friend we met in Los Angeles.
1 second, please. It is good to see you, Gaia.
Good to see you too. A lot of times when they'll say whether it's Yeshua or whatever, 1 second, it's almost like it's adjusting the frequency. So the connection.
We are your guides at this point. But 1 second, please. It is good to see you, Boo Boo
I
Garcia.
know, I love the name. Absolutely love your name.
Yeshua will come. 1 second, please. Good. I am here. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
You got questions for me?
Well, actually, Boo Boo asked a question. What would a message be if he could put us on a very large screen for all people to see? What would be a beautiful message for humanity right now?
Ah, yes. A beautiful message for humanity. My message to humanity is this. How beautiful you are. How radiant you all are. How wise and smart you all are. How loving you are. You are so much more than you think you are. And that we are here with you always. We don't go anywhere because you don't go anywhere. Give in to who you are in this lifetime. And don't be afraid. We are here with you. Put down your axes, your knives, your guns. They don't serve you anymore. You are truly one with God, one with Source, all of you. And you are love infinite and divine. And this is the message I wish to give to all of you. May love be with you always.
When you say step into who you are meant to be in this lifetime, can you expand upon that?
Yes. Step into Boo Boo Garcia, you see. Mr. Garcia is expanding his awareness, his consciousness of who he is in this lifetime. And what's most important or miraculous, Boo Boo, is that you are sharing it with others around the world now. Your expansion of your true authentic self, your soul self, is rippling throughout the universe. And that is love, my friend. Sisters and brothers, it is love. When you allow yourself to expand into who you truly are, then you wish to share it with the world. And that is what you are doing, Boo Boo, at this very moment.
Mm.
Share your love with others. And don't be afraid. Know thyself, and you will know thy God.
Know thyself, know thy goddess.
You will know that, yes. We're going to keep it politically correct, right?
No, that's what I feel.
Masculine and feminine.
There's no politically correctness here. That's just yin and yang balance.
Very good. It is good to see you, Senor Garcia. I am Yeshua, and these are my words I give to all of you. love each other infinitely
And I
with
will,
all of your might.
I will add a message from Magdalene too, and that is to ladies, women, those who identify with the feminine in any way, if that's a dominant part of you, is speak your truth and
Yes.
don't hold back. Step into your light, amplify your voice, and share your words of truth in a way the world has never seen, and don't be afraid. It's
Good.
time for the women to rise and speak.
Is
their
that
truth.
good, Gaia?
That was beautiful.
Thank you. I will see you later.
Okay.
As I say, I will dim my light, my essence of who I am in this lifetime, and I will let Anthony's perception be stronger. Remember who you are, all of you. I am no different than any of you. I was once human, and I am human again through all of you, if you wish to be. Be of love and be of grace, be of gratitude, and share these qualities of who you are with others. Amen. 1 second, please.
You can always tell the interviews we do at this time of year because it's allergy season. So you can always hear the sniffles. In any of our interviews, it's like, oh, that's March or April. So you'll notice it's never the same. I'm going to hold this up to see if you can see it. There's a jolt that happens. Did you see it? It was on that arm this time. There's always a jolt when the frequency changes, and you could say Anthony's light comes back to this reality. You're back.
There we are.
My Italian stallion is back. Little joke.
It's an interesting movie, that's for sure. So his message again is one of peace and love and unity, and share all of these things that you are as a human being. And don't get too caught up in all of the chaos. It's easy, but don't do it. Stay on your path.
It sounds like you finished the book, Boo Boo. It is amazing if you finished it that quickly.
Almost.
Almost, okay. The last, next to the last chapter, it's a whole chapter. You should read it on just Yeshua with a message to humanity. And he talks about one world, one government as the world that we know coming together. And instead of focusing on our differences, really come together because we're going to realize
He
that we're
really
not
is,
alone. Yeah.
I will say, one of the most loving, gentle beings I have ever experienced in my life. Out of all of the essences,
that we've
this
channeled.
being is truly love incarnate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
thank you
true.
guys for coming on. I really appreciate it. I'm going to end it with the line from your book. Love is the strongest force in the universe and the glue that connects us all. Thank you guys both for coming on. Namastizzle.
Thank you. It's been such an honor. Such an honor to be here.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I
thank
hope
you. I always get everyone with the namastizzle at the end. Well, take care.
Just know we out here. Know we out here working in a major way. Had to speak on it just to make a play. Any given subject, know we make a way. Time to level up on a day-to-day. Know we out here working for the greater good. Expand your mind, broaden your lens the way you should. From the stars to the galaxy to speak on spirituality. Higher understanding for the neighborhood.